How do you get a person who has zero knowledge, zero connections, and zero skills in sales engineering, but becomes a sales engineer? Well, you get a man who rose from frying chicken at a restaurant to working as a solutions engineer, earning over $100,000 annually at his first tech company. Listen to this interview with myself, Tony Moze, and solution engineer Emmanuel Fadojitimi to find out.
The Tony Moze Podcast.
And can you tell everybody a little bit, about who you are and what's your name?
Okay. My name is Emmanuel Fadojitimi. The last name is cool because it's Nigerian. So in case you were wondering why it was so cool, it's very Nigerian. But I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. A little bit about myself. I grew up in Baltimore, born and raised, and then I went to Towson University to study jazz performance. Actually, I'm a musician by trade. While I was in school, I actually went on tour with a couple big name artists. So when I got back off tour, I actually decided to change my major, became a photographer for a little bit. And then I decided I wanted to go to flight school, which was another part of my life. Flight school was pretty expensive. Spending like $1,000 a week, just, fueling planes and just living in airplanes. And I realized being a full-time musician just wasn't going to cut it anymore. So that's when I got my first sales job. And then the life of sales just consumed me. And now I am a sales engineer. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Awesome. So you had a pretty interesting trajectory. You went to this, to college for jazz studies, right? So what instruments were you playing?
I went to school to study trumpet. Trumpet was my main instrument, actually. But nowadays, I'll be honest, man, I play a lot more piano than anything. Not a lot of people are looking for trumpet players. So I get, I still make, quite a bit of money doing weddings and coordinating weddings and doing studio sessions and things like that. So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. I went to a performing arts elementary school.
Did you?
Alto. Yes, I did.
Nice.
I played alto saxophone. I wanted to play the drums. I don't know. It just looked so cool just to play the drums. But my band teacher had other plans. So he said, you're going to play alto sax. And there I was playing alto sax till the end of high school. So I respect it. So your first pre-sales position was at Allstate Insurance. What were your responsibilities there?
I would say, it wasn't even, I couldn't even say that it's pre-sales. I couldn't even say that it was pre-sales. I would say that it was like straight up sales. I was at Allstate for quite some time. I started as an intern, actually. Believe it or not, the agency owner hired me because she was actually about to close that office down. I was the intern that was supposed to just be forwarding calls to the 1-800 number. But I don't know. I couldn't, there were some calls that came in and I was like, I can figure out how to solve this problem for you. Like, you just need like a policy update. You just want to know if this is covered. Yeah, sure. You want to know if this car is on your policy. Yeah, I got you. No problem. A lot of the things that these customers needed actually were simple stuff. And, the agency owner was the only agent at the time. And she just couldn't get to these people, because of her heavy workload. So I would just handle some of these simple stuff for her. And I was building relationships with some of the customers on the way. And by the time that she got around to their emails or something that they needed, they would be like, oh no, Emmanuel actually took care of that for me. And she just realized, okay, all right, this intern is doing a little bit more than I asked. I'm retaining the customers. I'm getting people to sign their renewals so that they can stay as customers. And she started seeing the retention rates start to change a little bit. And one day I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I was just answering the phones and solving people's problems instead of sending them to a 1-800 number. Because I know I would hate that if you just sent me to a 1-800 number. You know what I mean? And she just, one day she came to the office. I wasn't expecting her because she was never in the office. And she just says to me, she says, you're doing like the first half of what sales is building relationships with people. So I think I'm going to teach you sales. And man, she taught me like what sales was, what it actually was. And then she paid for all my licensing to become an actual insurance agent. She became quite the mentor to me, and I literally just became an insurance agent and started a career there.
That's awesome. Two things from that. The whole idea of you being, me as a customer calling and then being transferred, the whole pain of that, there's been times I've been transferred so many times, I could have counted up to 20 and I've been on the call for at least an hour or two, just wondering, right, am I ever going to get to this destination of mine? So
not even just destination, but in order to get to an actual person to speak to, because you're talking to the automated teller for like the person.
Even worse, man, and that's amazing. So, this is what this channel is about, you being that transparent to say, hey, I didn't even when I got this job at Allstate, I didn't go right into sales. I built my way into it.
Right.
And that's the thing that people should understand here is if they're considering a role in pre-sales, it's a way that you could build yourself into. Like, you don't have to be there's a lot of myths that people are seeing here. The whole idea, you have to have a technical degree, come from a technical university, and you have to be in sales in order to get these new positions like sales engineer. But right there, you talking about your first role right there is just debunking the whole myth of path,
Right. Because I mean, I have a role as a pre-sales, technical sales or solutions engineer right now. And I'm sure we'll probably get to that, but I'm sure you probably want to know everything in between that led up to that, because this is my first role as an SE, if you will, and my path, actually, truthfully, no one's path is kind of, pretty straightforward into the SE position. I'm sure every SE you'll come across, their story starts I kind of fell into the role, or it started, you know what I mean? But that's where I'll say that my sales background started from. And I think it's unique, particularly because most SEs that even I've met come from such an engineering background that fell into it. I'm starting to meet more and more people that have such a big sales background and go into, the life of pre-sales and becoming an SE. So it's really, really interesting, everything that happened for me in between, but that was where it started for me, for sure.
Awesome. And, now you make your way a little bit more, you get past, you have your experience at Allstate Insurance, and now you decided to have your own business. What was your business and why did you start it?
So the business was digital marketing. I was selling lead generation services with a focus on insurance marketing, particularly because my past was insurance agent. But the reason why I started actually came from a job that I had in between. I left Allstate to do door-to-door sales. And I don't know if anybody's ever done door-to-door sales. I don't know if you've ever done door-to-door sales, but this is quite the role, you really got to have, you just build thick skin. You know what I'm saying? Hard work is important because it's either you either sell or you don't eat. You know what I mean? It's 100% commission, no base salary, no hourly wage. It's just you knocking on doors for this particular role from 1:00 in the afternoon, literally till you make a sale in some cases. And I think the most that you could probably make off of one deal was probably 150. The most you could make is 100. There were different products in between, but $150 for one yes after knocking on doors for 9 hours was a thing. And what it taught me was the psychology of sales, just always being this sharp tool that you needed to be, because if you knock on the door, one, we live in an age now where you can't just show up at people's houses, especially if they don't know you. So you'll have to have amazing communication in order to even connect with people really quick, build a 10-second friend so that they can even listen to what you have to say. You have to be able to, your people skills, your soft skills, or a lot of people are trying to get away from calling it soft skills, but your interpersonal skills need to be really, really sharp in order for you to make a sale doing door-to-door sales. And the company that we were doing door-to-door sales for was Verizon Fios. And they, how do you get somebody to change their entire TV, internet, and phone connection from whatever provider they had to Fios just by having a conversation? And once I got good at that, I would average $1,000 a week. Now remember, it was 150 per, so like closing deals would validate my interpersonal skills, if you will. You know what I mean? So like, it was almost like I was looking at sales to tell the story of how good I was getting with my interpersonal skills. And they got so good that what it allowed me to do was build my own team of sales reps. Because I was doing well, it didn't matter if I was doing well after a while, because if my team wasn't doing well, then I wasn't doing well. So this is what developed me as a sales trainer, because now I have to develop my team into doing sales, right? And all this did was convince me, like once I kind of fell out of the need to do door-to-door sales, I found a way to do that same thing online for myself. So that's when I started Nobilis Insurance Marketing. And what Nobilis Insurance Marketing was it, not to sound gimmicky, but it was an insurance marketing agency for insurance agencies built by a former insurance agent.
Yeah.
So this was a way, right. This was a way that I could get insurance agency owners to feel that this was an exclusive lead generation service built for them by someone who knew their market. You understand? And it inspired me to do that. What it started to do was it started to think of sales not as a job anymore, but more so as a skill, which became completely different, because at this point I'm working with not customers at their doors anymore. I'm working with C-suite executives. You know what I mean? I'm working with CEOs of these agencies, and I have to consult with them and literally become a partner to them on how they're going to grow their business. So the idea of sales started to change for me from this, job that I had as an insurance agent and this job that I had as a door-to-door salesman into this consultant that would work with business owners on growing their business. And it started to help me look at sales differently. Okay, it's not just selling, it's consulting and coming up with an actual solution for this person to grow their business, finding what problems they have in their business now, and being able to help them solve that problem so that it can take them from, $15,000 a month to $100,000 a month. So Nobilis started to get me interested in just thinking of sales differently. I feel like I said that already, but yeah, just thinking of sales differently in that retrospect,
Yeah, that's awesome. You talked about door-to-door sales, man. The first time I did door-to-door sales was when I was 9 years old. I was going door-to-door selling this newspaper from Yonkers, New York, when I lived there.
Newspapers, wow.
Newspaper called the Herald-Statesman. So I had to go at the age of 9, knock on doors, as a kid. Okay, first off, people will go, well, who would how does a 9-year-old, well, I mean, if I'm going to date myself, I mean, this was 1990, 1991, whatever you want to say or something like that. So, of course, this is, standards perhaps were a little bit different. And I guess that's a lot. And I'm coming from New York. But I got to learn to go to door and just to get that sensory experience as a child. And then, of course, I know I wasn't performing as well as the other people because the other people were like 14, 16. There's a whole psychology with the brain, of course, as the Vincent Piaget, the psychologist, who talks about there's a certain way we think as we get older. There's like milestones. So I couldn't grasp it, but I remember being sat in front of like a group of I think they were the owners or whatever. And they're like, let's see how you pitch. These like 40-year-old middle-aged men, and I'm 9 years old trying to pitch, and we're all like, everyone else is waiting out the door for their turn. And I'm just like, here I am learning the whole idea, but nevertheless, it was a great experience because it got me to understand about like sales and just interacting with customers and pitching, and it's good, man. I think more people should do that. I think more people should do either the door-to-door or the cold call, because you really have to learn so much from people who interact.
There's so many skills that I think that One, I think the first thing we have to do is throw away people's general idea of what a salesman is. You know what I mean? Like, because I think when you hear the word salesman, people just think of that sleazy car salesman, just like as soon as you walk in the door, hey sir, can I help you? You know what I mean? Like, well, back up. I'm just looking, brother. You know what I mean? Like, no. Like a real salesperson is someone who will ask a lot of questions to really understand what you're looking for. And you only get that from somebody who is tenured when it comes to talking to people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really versed at reaching out to people, even cold, particularly because what cold calling does is it builds your confidence in just reaching out to random people. Like, I'm not, if you put me in a room full of people I don't know, I promise you, give me an hour, I will have 10 friends in the room. You know what I mean? Like, and that only comes from cold outreach. You only learn that skill doing, well, not only, but that's where that came from, you know? So I'm pretty sure even just your New York vibe, you could just literally be anywhere and just really just command the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where that comes from for sure.
You know, you said something just before that. You said, you know, everyone thinks of the salesman as the car salesman, but you got to the foundation of what sales is. It's asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I see a segue because therapists, you know, psychotherapists, those who are going for counseling, they ask questions.
Yeah.
They ask questions to then provide solutions.
Yeah.
If someone is a psychotherapist or someone who's working in this, you know, that kind of field, and they're thinking of transitioning, they, in a sense, could be in pre-sales. They could be a sales engineer or an account executive. I mean, because they already got used to asking questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really the first half of it, because if we look at it like it's two halves, there are a lot of things in between for sure, right? But if we look at it as two halves, like the first half is asking questions because you need to understand the problem. And the second half would literally just be coming up with the solution for the answers that you got when you were asking the questions. An example that I like to use is here's how you know you're asking good questions. You know what I mean? If a police officer is asking a suspect a question, who has control of the conversation? It's the police officer. They're interrogating. And if you're asking the right questions, trust me, the suspect will literally implement themselves. And it's the police officer who steered the entire conversation with the questions that they're asking. So even when it comes to asking questions, are you asking the right questions? Here's a perfect example of this, right? YES spells yes, right? So if you spell YES, it's YES. Now, if I were to ask you, what does EYES spell? Imagine having to answer that question after you've established in your mind YES spells yes. And I just threw one letter at the beginning. EYES spells eyes. But a lot of people would have answered that question, ES? They wouldn't get it, particularly because their mind has been impulsed to think a certain way. So even sometimes asking the right questions isn't even enough. Sometimes asking the right questions in the right order to really get to the meat of a problem is also important. But again, like, this just comes with like just tenure and just skill and experience of just being able to get to the root of someone's problem and asking the right questions, and sometimes in the right order. You know, like if we're out for drinks, I'm not going to come up to you and be like, hey, what's your life goals? That's weird. You know, I'd probably start with, hey, what's your name? Or, hey, what are you drinking? You know, like something simple. So asking the right questions in the right order, you know, these are things that you just kind of like have to put together. Simple questions, closed-ended questions, open questions. If you find the right technique in the right order for these things, you really like become like a crazy salesperson, just really good at getting to the meat of what this person is looking for and being able to solve their problems for sure.
So yeah, that's awesome. The interesting part was right after that, you were able to land a role as a sales engineer in 6 months. If looking back when you got your first, you know, job at Allstate Insurance, did you think you'd ever become a sales engineer?
Never. First of all, I didn't even know what it's. Let's just talk first. That job at Allstate was literally back in 2014, 15, right? That's when I left. So it started in 2012. So we're talking about, first of all, you have to know when I learned what a sales engineer was. That was 6 months ago. I didn't even know what a sales engineer was 6 months ago. So when we talk about this journey that I took in these past 6 months, we're talking about from knowing not even what a sales engineer is to landing a very, very sweet role in a pretty prestigious company. It's a company you can't mention CRM without naming them. And I just happened to land a role with them after learning what a sales engineer was. I took a small course. So your question was, if I look back at Allstate, we're talking about 2015. Man, I didn't even know what a sales engineer was back in May, and here I am. So the answer is no. So even back in May, I would have never predicted that this is where I'd be at all.
And how did you find out about this position, and what made you say, you know what, I want to be a sales engineer? Like, what was the influence? What was that spark of stimulus that said, I'm going to do this?
Okay. Well, full transparency, right now, like full time, what I was doing at the time, full time, was a restaurant trainer. I go around making sure like people are doing the right, standard operating procedures in the different branches of this restaurant. And pretty much I'm a line cook. So basically I flip chicken at your local chicken joint. You know what I mean? And but I wanted to get back to sales, right? I was like, you know what? This isn't for me. I want to get back to sales. And a lot of people were like, hey, man, don't go back to sales. The income is so up and down. You're recently engaged. You want to be thinking about your future and some stability. You should take this coding boot camp. You can get a job in like 12 weeks, learn how to code and all this other. And I was just like, man, I don't know. I don't know if I could be a coder. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I could learn, but I don't know if that's for me. But I entertained it. So a lot of times I found myself looking up coding boot camps just to see what they entailed and things like that. And then, but I was still looking up sales jobs, right? And you know how the internet works. 6 months ago, I had no idea how the internet worked, but now I feel like I do, right? The internet just takes some things that you searched and just tries to come up with something that will fit you. And you take sales and then you take coding and engineering and you put them together and you get sales engineering. So the first day that this popped up in I don't know, I was on Instagram or something. I was like, what is a sales engineer? What is that? So I started to look up YouTube videos. I'm one of those people that when I want to find something out, I'll engulf myself. Now already, just, backstory, remember when I was on Nobilis, when I was still doing my digital marketing agency, I was already starting to think of sales as a consultant role now. There's a leadership kind of thing to sales. And so I already had that in the back of my mind for the sales role that I was looking for, something that was a little bit more consultative, right? So when sales engineering came about and I'm learning about the role, I looked up so many YouTube videos about what is a sales engineer, came across so many great people, Chris White, Ramsey, and I know these guys. And I just started to really, Tanner Drake, he's a really, really cool guy at VMware. And I just started to engulf myself in what is a sales engineer. I became a subject matter on the role itself. And then I got led to a course that I could actually take to get a certificate in sales engineering. I just took the course and this all happened in May. So from May to now, October, literally, poof. And I was just like, this is exactly what I felt like I should be doing. This is the type of sales role. And here's the thing, like some sales engineers will tell you this isn't sales, which is so crazy to me. It's so insane to me. But I'm really, I feel like this is the most perfect thing that I could be doing. And I'm really, really excited for what my career is about to look like in the next 5 years. So, yeah.
So, two things. I'm wondering first off, could we talk about the name of this company that you'll be at?
I don't see why not. I'll be at HubSpot. Yeah.
Okay.
HubSpot.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know why I was afraid to say like I've got some non-disclosure that I can't say where I work. I don't know why. I'm so sorry.
And by the time you're fully there, that's when the video will be done. So because there's a queue of videos I'm working on right now. I'm trying to put out. So
as if I had some sort of non-disclosure agreement with them, like you're not allowed to say where you work.
All right. Cool.
I'm excited. Yeah, I work for HubSpot, bro.
Awesome. So you're at HubSpot, and you talked about, because this is I want to help people who are considering this. What was this platform this sales engineering course that you took?
Yeah. So Careerist is they don't just focus on sales engineering though. Actually, they're more known for their QA course. They do a manual QA course, quality assurance course, and they also do a QA automation course. That's what they were really centered around. And then they just happened to start doing tech sales and sales engineering as well. And that's what came across my screen. So I looked up them. They're an online course. I did like a 4-week intense, just the principles of what it makes a good sales engineer, demoing, the difference between a good demo and a bad demo, the difference between showing somebody how cool a piece of tech is and showing someone the value of this piece of tech. Careers really taught me the difference and really, really allowed me to transform a lot of my transferable skills and help me market myself more so as a sales engineer. Because if you saw my resume, bro, it just screams account executive, sales guy. It screams that stuff. So they were the ones who really helped me start to think of myself as a sales engineer. And believe it or not, even while during the course, as I'm engulfing myself inside of what it is to be a sales engineer, I got pointed in the direction of this incredible resource, very large community of sales engineers called the Pre-Sales Collective. It's really, really hard to talk about this role actually without mentioning the Pre-Sales Collective, which I think is a great thing for sure. I believe, people like Careerist and the Pre-Sales Collective, UG and James, the things that they're creating, they're starting to bridge the gap a little bit for the entrance barrier for this role. Because a lot of companies don't even know what this role is yet, and they're still trying to figure it out. How do I know? Because applying for them entry level, you would still see, entry level sales engineering position, 5 to 7 or 7 to 10 years of experience needed. And you're like, what? That's what? But you got people like Careers and the Pre-Sales Collective that are totally bridging the gap for what it means to learn about this role and find a role in a company doing that. So yeah.
So you got some tips from Careerists, from outside resources, but how about just putting this all together from within your value systems, from your experiences, from who you are? Like, what are some tips we could give to aspiring, professionals who may want a career in pre-sales or specifically a sales engineering position? This is a few-part question. I'm just gonna list them off first, and then we're gonna comb down through each one of them. So the first would be what were some resources you studied upon? Who and how did you network? How did you practice and prepare for interviews? How did you conduct yourself in interviews, and any other tips or advice? So the first one is, what were some resources you studied up on? Because you said Careerist. Okay. What other things? You said YouTube.
YouTube was a big help. It's allowed me to find a lot of the people who you would call pre-sales leaders. So I know I found a couple Chris White videos. I even got his book, The 6 Habits of a Pretty Highly Effective Sales Engineer. I got that book. I literally just started to just type in sales engineer. That's how I found the different names of them. That's how how this role is still so new. There's so many names for a sales engineer. You got pre-sales engineer, technical pre-sales engineer, solutions engineer, solutions consultant. All of these are, SE positions or SC positions. So I started looking up all of them. And when I say I engulf myself, I mean my intention was to become a subject matter expert on the role. So anything that I could look up and I can find or I could read about, there are even some YouTube videos of some SEs who do like a day in the life of an SE, what I do on a daily basis. And what I started to find was it depends on the company. You know what I mean? A lot of SEs wear a lot of different hats in startups, the ones who, you might have to do a little bit more coding and technical stuff in more technical companies if you're an SE. Your demos might involve something a little bit more intricate than you just telling a prospect, hey, this is going to work for your business. You might have to actually go in and write a script or two. So maybe for some companies, being an SE that knows how to code is essential. You know what I mean? Me, I'm still learning how to code. So I knew that I could cross off. It started to help me shape what companies to go after or what companies I should be looking at to apply for. So resources became YouTube. Then another resource became LinkedIn. Huge resource, obviously. I think that one of the things that I would do is I would reach out to hiring managers or hiring recruiters for this position. If I saw a company that I liked, I would look up the company, try to understand their tech, what it is, the basic idea of what they do, and do I see myself doing these things? Is there a lot of, do I have to learn a lot to work for this company? Is that going to affect my adaptation if I were to start working there? And just looking at what the entrance barrier from my perspective would be, if you know what I mean. So a lot of times, if I would find a company that I liked, I would just find somebody who works there as an SE and reach out to them. And I would just say, hey, I saw that you guys were hiring. I just wanted to ask a couple questions about, your role and what you do there and things like that. And of course, this is also a form of networking. You increase your network on LinkedIn. You also get more information. And I'll say this, interviewing SEs was so helpful because I got to understand the role even more outside of my own personal research, the practical stuff, the stuff that you won't get when you're learning about it, you'll get from somebody who's actually doing it. You know what I mean? So even in the pre-sales collective, another resource, just reaching out to SEs and just asking, hey, can we have a one-on-one? I'd really like to ask you some questions about your experience as an SE and some of the things that you would probably ask yourself looking back and things like that. So LinkedIn, the pre-sales collective, YouTube, those were all great resources for me. What's another part of the question? There was a lot in that question.
Yeah. So you talked about the resources, and could you dive a little bit deeper again, like who, and how did you network? I mean, it could sound like it's reiterating, but I think it shows a little bit more of detail if we could talk about that specifically.
Okay, so let's see. Obviously, I felt as though, being pre-sales leaders and the people who started the pre-sales collective, I reached out to James and Yuji and I'm like, hey, can, I'm settling in, I'm shifting from, a direct sales role and I want to be a pre-sales engineer. I want to do sales engineering. Can we have a one-on-one? Can I ask you about your experience? Can I ask you about your background? I love asking people about their background. And this is how I know most SEs, their story starts with, yeah, I just kind of fell into the role. And I think that is so interesting because a lot of them did. A lot of them were programmers for a while and they could just speak to the product. So they could just speak to demoing it for, prospective clients and customers. James, his background and understanding and even why him and Yuji built the pre-sales collective was such an interesting thing to me. And it helped me gain insight for what they were trying to do, but also what this role is for and why it's needed. So as I started to understand more, the questions that I started asking different SEs started to get, a little bit more specific. And because I knew what questions to ask, once again, asking the right questions, you just attract the right people and you attract the right answers to you. I reached out to Craig Vitter, who was, really, really helpful with, allowing me to interview. He did mock interviews with me. He wanted to make sure, like, while I was interviewing my demos, he's like, hey, let me see your demo. And this is somebody I met on the internet through the pre-sales collective. He was just very invested in me. Not one person, not one SE that I've ever met so far has said, oh, I hate my job. They all love what they do. And they're all like leaping forward to help people get into this role. Another huge, and I call her my cheerleader, Zooey. She is somebody in the pre-sales collective that I met because I think when I first started interviewing, actually, I noticed I was keeping track of how many places I was applying to and how many engagements I was getting through my application. And I noticed a lot of people were seeing my resume, but I wasn't getting a lot of calls back, which made me feel like all right, there's something on my resume that doesn't reflect the things I can do enough for them to call me back. So I'm going to need somebody to help me rewrite my resume or take a look at my resume and see what's wrong. So I actually put that in the pre-sales collective chat on Slack. And I was like, is anybody able to, help me look at my resume and, help me rewrite it to get some tips and things like that. And immediately, like, there were like 5 people, all people who like were instrumental in helping me even land this role and prepare for this role that I have at HubSpot. Zooey was like the first one. She was like, hey, I'm reaching out. I saw what you posted. I want to help you out. Send me your resume. I rewrite resumes all the time. I'm actually switching to pre-sales as well. And she just got a really, really cool role at a company. I think, I don't remember what company, but she, Insight, right. Gainsight. And she's totally excited because she just landed a role too. But the things that she helped me with, she was just like cheering me on, like, you're going to kill this interview. You're going to do this. She helped me with my resume and everything like that. So the things that I got help with, and I was constantly tweaking every interview that I had, if it didn't work out, I was asking the recruiters, hey, I'm always trying to refine myself. Like, what is it that I could have done better that would have made me a better candidate for this position? And they would always tell me. And I would just use that information to just tweak. And before I knew it, I felt as though I was already thinking and speaking like a sales engineer, to the point where even my questions that I would ask in the interview would speak to my experience as a sales engineer. So, and I think that's important, particularly because that's what a sales engineer does. Ask really good questions. So,
yeah. Wow. And how, okay. And I know you spoke about this, how did you practice and prepare for interviews?
I think this is my favorite part of the conversation so far. I think this is because so much work went into this. Anybody who's aspiring to be a sales engineer, I want you to know, like, it's not, these aren't retail jobs, like, if they're going to pay you 6 figures, you have to prepare for these interviews. You understand? Like, the upside and the security and the job itself, there's so much to it that they need to make sure that you can handle these things. So if they need to make sure that you can handle these things, you need to make sure you can handle these things, which means you have to prepare for these interviews. So mock interviews. Sometimes, even if I didn't have questions to ask a sales engineer who I was trying to network with, I would simply ask them, hey, would you mind doing a mock interview with me? Especially if they were a hiring manager. And you'd never know, because if your mock interview goes well, that hiring manager is thinking, okay, this is going well. This guy might actually be a really good candidate for, I'm going to get you in touch with my recruiter. I'm going to get them to check some boxes off on you. We might be able to move you through the process, or we might have a small internship for you. You never know. So being prepared all the time. So how do you be prepared? One, again, become a subject matter expert on the role. You need to be able to, even if you don't know what that company does, which there should be no reason why you apply for a company and you don't know what they do. But even if you don't know what they do, generally, I think you need to know what the role of a sales engineer is, and you can speak to it. I think having really, really good questions to ask is really, really important. In order to know what questions to ask, you have to know what a sales engineer does. I think some of my favorite questions to ask during the interview was, what does a person who starts in this position, what does the career development look like for them? How many SEs do you guys have right now? And how many AEs do each of them support? Everybody wants a 1-to-1 ratio of SE to AE, but ideally, how many AEs do you guys want each SE to support? Being able to ask these kinds of questions means, okay, you know what this job entails. So having really good questions to ask, doing mock interviews, and really just brushing shoulders with actual SEs that do this on a daily basis literally just prepares you. It gets you talking like an SE. It gets you in the mindset of an SE. That way, once you kind of hone in on the company that you want to apply for, you're really kind of just displaying to them that you can handle this role and you are an SE and a good fit for this particular role at this particular company. So, I would say just keep it to those 3 things: prepare, ask good questions, and just talk to SEs.
Cool. So you said that. Now to go into this next one, to deep down dive in this one. How do you conduct yourself in an interview?
How do I conduct myself? I have to be completely honest. Tech companies are getting younger and younger. You know what I mean? So even, I did one interview where somebody was like, they were telling me about another interview, and they were like, the guy had on a suit and they didn't understand that. I was like, wow, do you get what I mean? Like wearing a suit was weird for you. The guy was wearing a suit and that was weird for you. And you were like that was, and this is what they told me. They said that means that they didn't look us up and they didn't understand the culture. The reason why this is important is because what I'm starting to notice is that a lot of companies are actually focusing more so on, are you a good culture fit? A lot of the skills that you'll learn on the job. A lot of the skills you'll learn on the job, and a lot of stuff they'll have to teach you anyway, whether you say you know how to do it or not. Of course, knowing how to do it is a big plus, but culture fit is so important for interviews. So I think that when you can connect with the person you're interviewing with, and they can see themselves relating to you, I will say that conducting myself in the interview towards the end, it became, is this person, I feel like they were thinking, is this person are they going to have a student mentality? And are they a good person to work with? If you have those three things, even when I was building my sales teams, I always boiled it down to these three things: work environment, growth, and compensation, right? And I would even ask in the interview, can you rank these three things? There's no right or wrong answer. It's just, I want to know what's important to you, right? I would look at their resume. Oh, I've been at this job for this long. Okay, tell me what you liked about it. Here's the thing. Any job that you loved, I don't know what the science is, man, but any job you loved, you probably had a really great relationship with the supervisor. Every job you hated, you probably really did not have a good relationship with the supervisor. Mm-hmm. So you start to see how much work culture plays effect in that. So as far as your question goes, how do you conduct yourselves in an interview? I think being yourself is the most authentic answer I can give you, particularly because they don't want somebody who's going to be all posh and overly professional in the interview, and then you start and you're not who they thought you were. Like that's, so being your most authentic self, I think, is the most authentic answer I can give you.
Yeah, that was a paradigm shift for me, because when I crossed over into this, especially when I was applying for software engineering jobs a couple of years ago when I got out of the boot camp, the software boot camp, like to know that, you could wear jeans in some companies, you could wear maybe just a button up. It depends on obviously the company, but just to hear that, like, again, this is something was new for me. And I'm assuming a lot of people who are making that jump over, because maybe in my area was coming from like wearing suits, wearing the corporate dress, obviously, because that was what was appropriate. But what about HubSpot? Like, what was the dress code for an interview there?
Well, it wasn't this, right? I wasn't wearing a beanie and a Prince Purple Rain shirt. I'll tell you that.
Although it's cool.
But right. I'll say that I wore a polo shirt, or a button-down shirt with the top button not buttoned. It definitely wasn't suit and tie. I would say just, casual clothes, actually. Like if I had to give it a word for it. Now, I'm not saying at all like don't wear suit and ties. I'm not saying that at all. I don't want anybody to be like, oh, this guy got lucky and he shouldn't have a job. But what I'm saying is look up the company. If you can see their culture, like go to their website, see what they're wearing on the daily basis. Like, all right, there's a guy in, a polo shirt and some joggers. Like, obviously it's very, very relaxed. HubSpot just happens to be a company that, one, amazing, like as far as caring about their employees. Some of the like, we have mental health days. Like that's insane to me. Like, there are not a lot of companies that think that that's a thing. They just want to work you to the bone, and you have to be overly professional all the time. And that's okay for those companies. I mean, if they're paying you a lot of money, yeah, please wear a suit and tie. Please, if that's what they require for your demos, you need to show up and be like I'm sure there will probably be some that for my demos, I'll have to be in a certain tie for. But the reason, and I know dressing is not the focus of this question, it's more so the culture. But if you can look up the company and you can get an idea of the culture, you'll know exactly how to conduct yourself. So look up the company's values. I would say that would speak to how you need to conduct yourself.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't want to take this out, but any other tips or advice around this whole thing? Like any other things that you may want to say that we may not have spoken about?
I think that my story is very, very unique. But a mentor told me, until your dissatisfaction reaches a certain level, that is when you will change. You understand what I mean?
Wow.
This role, yes, I stumbled upon it, but the reason why I went from zero, knowing nothing, to being here right now in 6 months is because my dissatisfaction level for where I was in life was really, really high. Some people aren't making changes in their life yet because their dissatisfaction level for what they're doing hasn't reached a high enough level for them to do something about it. So the question is, how dissatisfied are you? My answer was incredibly dissatisfied. And I'm saying all this to say, if you want something, you literally have to grind for it. And I think that, the manager that was interviewing me at HubSpot, as she got to understand my story as well, I think she saw that. And that was the reason why she felt I was a good fit. After my final interview, actually, I only had one question for her. And that was, what are your goals? She's stepping into a new role as a manager. And I wanted to make sure that I'm aligning myself with someone, not just the company now, someone who I can align myself with her goals as well if she's going to be my supervisor. Particularly because I have momentum right now. Like, I'm dissatisfied with life. I want to know that you have goals that will keep us as a team moving and moving. And the point, I'm sorry, I'm riffing right now, but the point that I want to make is it's easier said than done, but this process was easy, but it was a lot of work. Not hard work, but it was a lot of work. And it's only going to make sense if you have your goals in front of you. You know exactly why you feel like you need to get through this process. So you're going to grind. At one point, it got so crazy that I created a spreadsheet for people I made contact with, the company, the potential salary, and the tech that they're doing, and then notes on where I was in the interview process. This spreadsheet got huge. And at one point, there were 5 companies that I was doing work for. And I was getting stressed out. Like, it's like, dang, I had to sit through this 4-hour training. I don't even work for this company. I got to come up with a 45-minute presentation. And this is just like step 2 in the interview process. Goodness gracious. But if your why is so sound and you really want this, you're going to do it. And you're not going to, even if they don't go with you and they choose somebody with more experience, let me tell you something, you're going to do it and you're going to chalk that up as experience. So it's either you learn or it works out, but it's never a wasted opportunity because I have such a sales background. This is my first role as an SE. I don't, even my resume at the top, it said solutions engineer, but none of my roles were solutions engineer. And I would try to get in front of that. You need to be okay with the fact that you don't have experience. You know what I mean? And if you don't have experience, you need to get in front of that and say, look, I might not have experience as an SE, but I do have if you would agree that the role of an SE is an integrated role, then I would tell you that I have all of these skills that are transferable from these other pieces of experience that I've had that will contribute to what would make a really, really great SE for you. And being able to just think like that will just allow. So you really need to market yourself differently. And I promise you, if you become a subject matter expert on the role first, you'll start to align yourself with how you fit into this role. And poof, you'll literally have your trump card anytime you need it.
Awesome. Last question here. It's a 3-part question, of course. Let's get a little creative here in thinking. And if you don't have an answer for one or all of them, it's okay. How do you think your jazz studies help you to be a sales engineer?
Okay. One is performance. So I'm definitely not a stranger to being in front of large crowds at all. People don't pay, like, performance wise. People pay to go see people in concert because they want to see them creating. They want to see them struggling and how they come out of that struggle. That's what you pay for. You want to see the pain. Like, no one pays to go see Adele in concert because they can listen to the song they can download the song and listen to it in their car. But the reason why they paid is because they want to see her doing it. You know what I mean? So knowing that as a performer, I know that doing demos, people want to see that you can connect what you have with them. So I feel like even as a jazz performer, like, I would just be telling a story, my story on my instrument, and connecting it with people and having people connect with it. So pretty simple. That was an easy one.
Awesome. And then how do you think your job with Allstate Insurance and the second sales job help you to be a sales engineer?
Mm-hmm. I think when you look at what a sales engineer is, you have sales and you have engineering. So obviously being in sales literally just gave you that first half of that. Allstate taught me, like, my first bit about sales. The door-to-door gave me the thick skin. Like, rejection is okay. I think the salespeople that get frustrated when they get a no, they're the ones that don't make for good sales guys, because they will take it personal. They will have it affect them. It'll affect their mentality. Now they can't, perform at a certain, caliber, particularly because they're still worried about the no from the last guy when there's a yes standing in front of them. But because they weren't in the right mindset, this guy said no too. You just wasted a lead. You know what I mean? So being at Allstate and the second sales job, the door-to-door sales job, it just allowed me to understand the intricacies of sales, just like the psychology behind it and things like that. It even got me starting to read books, you know what I mean? Like, because for sales, you really have to be like a sharp tool, man. You have to be the best version of yourself to really, like, master it. So it's really just about a mastery of you.
Awesome. And then how do you think your own business helped you to be a sales engineer?
I think as far as the sales engineering side and understanding what a sales engineer is, having my own business got me thinking more in the entrepreneurial mindset behind sales. That this is consulting. Like, I need to, it's the entrepreneurial mindset, but it's also consulting in the sense that I need you to know that I'm here for you, right? I would like to understand your pain because I want to help you solve it. And I know that I can help you solve it. Because if I can't, you won't pay me. You'll only pay me if I can solve your problem for you. So then I started to understand business in general. You only get paid for the problems that you solve. That is business. If you think of every business, the only reason why I'm paying you is because you solve this problem for me. That's how businesses do business, right? So in the role of a sales engineer, I'm only going to get paid. Well, they have pretty nice base salaries, but my company that I work for is only going to pay me based on if I can help this person understand that we can solve their business problem, not their technical problem. That's completely different. Understanding that the sales engineer solves business problems, not technical problems, is the difference. So once I started becoming and thinking more of a consultant in my business, that just became a direct transferable skill to what this role is. Becoming a trusted advisor, building a relationship, getting to understand their pain so that I can help relieve them of it.
Awesome. Now, if anyone can, who wants to learn more, where can they find or contact you?
Oh, for sure, man. I'm on LinkedIn, /in/e Fado Udemy. I love sharing this story, so if you want to connect with me, please, I'm always looking to build my network. I love just connecting with people and their stories as well. It's funny, just the role of a sales engineer, like one of the qualities of a good one is a storyteller. Like if you could be a good storyteller. So I love hearing other people's stories as well. So please connect with me. LinkedIn/in/EFADOJUTIMI. You'll be able to find me there, no problem.
Well, Emmanuel, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, man.
Show. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, bro. And I don't know if you guys know, but Anthony's got a pretty cool story too. So I'm waiting for you to definitely do your own thing, and you just talk about your journey, man, because it's definitely a cool one. But I appreciate you giving me the platform to share mine for sure.
I have provided the information in the description below. If you thought this was valuable, please like, comment, and subscribe. To stay connected with me, you can also find me at LinkedIn by searching for Anthony Moze and Twitter at Tony_Moze. I want you to envision success to become the best.